So recently I raced in the biggest GT race in the world, the 24 Hours of Spa. It's the second time I've done this race. I did it 2 years ago for the first time, and in that particular race we were running pretty well until my teammate in the night had an incident and we ended up retiring. So we didn't actually finish the race that time round. So 2 years out of the car, I've done no racing since then. The goal this time round was very, very simple, just to finish. If we get a result, even better, but we just want to finish the 24 Hours of Spa. That is the main goal. And if you're a bit confused as to how I got this drive, what car I was in, what team I was with, click on the card above. It will take you to the video where I announce it all, and it should bring you up to speed before we get into the meat and the bones of this video. So what happened then? Let's get into it. What happened in the 24 Hours of Spa 2024? So Spa race week is a long one. It starts pretty much from Monday to Friday until you get to the race weekend, whereas obviously a normal race weekend you turn up on the Thursday and it's like half a week. So on the Tuesday there was a test and we had to share it, of course, amongst all four of us because there's four of us in the car, and I only got 3 laps on that particular test. It was only a 3-hour test, I think. There was loads of red flags and incidents, and obviously I had to share the car with the other drivers in my car. So 3 hours sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. So got 3 laps. The main thing I got out of it though was in the dry I wanted to get Eau Rouge, Stavelot 2 and Blanchimont flat, just so I had that confidence going into the rest of the week that those corners were flat, and they were pretty easily, to be honest. With the McLaren Evo, it's really good in high speed corners, and obviously the tarmac resurfacing as well was a big talking point for Spa going into this race. I think this is the first race since it's been resurfaced, and the key areas it was resurfaced was Turn 1 and Le Combe, Stavelot 1, Stavelot 2 and the final chicane. So the rest of it was the old tarmac, and those sections I've just mentioned were the new tarmac, and not only was there more grip, it was flatter. The amount of grip was insane, especially in the wet as well, because you could take the dry line in the wet, and the traction you had in the wet on those bits of tarmac was ridiculous. It was tricky because you went from new tarmac to old tarmac to new tarmac, and it was like you were driving 2 different tracks. But when F1 go there very, very soon, the lap times are going to be nuts. On to Wednesday, there wasn't any testing or anything like that on track action. It was just the big parade, where it's quite an iconic event. They obviously do that at Le Mans, but they do it at Spa as well, and I got nominated to drive, which was a real honour. Unfortunately, it didn't go to plan because on that particular day, like today, it was like 30 plus degrees, and the McLaren didn't really deal with the heat too well, because there was a queue of like 200 cars going to the parade. The GT3s, GT4s, some vintage cars, loads of them. And yeah, in hindsight I probably could have done more to avoid the situation. Same with the team, but there were loads of cars overheating. I wasn't the only one to not make the parade, and due to the overheating we had to save the engine and stuff. The water temp got through the roof and we couldn't make the parade. Not going well. You can hear the cars in distant Belgium and I'm stuck here on the Kemmel. It would have been obviously an amazing experience, and it's a really unique experience. You drive through the streets like it's like the Isle of Man. You got no safety barriers. You literally got people either side of a road, and then GT3s blasting down the middle of it. So it would have been really cool, but ultimately it's not the end of the world. It's not the reason I'm doing this. So I had to forget about it and move on. It was one of those really unfortunate situations. Cars break, so that's one thing that differs from sim racing to real racing, is cars actually break down. On to Thursday, which was a very busy day because we had free practice 1, pre-qualifying, qualifying and night practice. So we got to the track at like 10 a.m. and we wouldn't leave until about 1 a.m. So it was a long day of driving, and it was a particularly hot day on that particular day as well. It was a really hot week. I think there's definitely a bit of a heat wave in Europe at the minute. But free practice 1, I didn't get any laps. My teammates, a couple of my teammates got the laps in free practice 1. I then got half an hour in pre-qualifying, and I got 7 or 8 laps, did like a nice stint, which was really good to get those laps under my belt, and I treated it like a mini race stint. Just got out there, caught up to traffic, tried to overtake traffic, and it was really good just to get that under my belt before obviously the race started on Saturday. So at this point, I have 11 laps under my belt, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's not too bad actually in real racing. So moving on to quali, I was in the 3rd qualifying session. There was 4 sessions, and the idea is you put your quickest driver in last, your second quickest driver in 3rd, and that's how it works. So I was in 3rd. So I'll dedicate an entire video to qualifying, just analysing it, what happened, what I could have done better, where I got unfortunate, and just sort of run you guys through, looking at video and data, what it's like to qualify a GT3 car. But to summarize in this quick video, basically I was on my first flying lap, sector 1 went well, and then I had to box because the car had a potential issue that the guys in the garage had to check, and that was in the pits for like 5 minutes. So I went back out, there was only like 3 minutes left or something, so I got a couple of laps. Obviously the best of the tyre is gone at that point because the best lap on the tyre is lap 1 or 2. The last 2 laps I was just in heavy traffic, so I couldn't really make the most of it. So in the end I did a 2:16.8, which is still really fast compared to like the last 24 hours of Spa, simply because the tarmac resurfacing has made the track, I think, 2 seconds a lap quicker, maybe slightly more. But yeah, 2:16.8 with a very compromised lap, and you'll see that in the video I do on qualifying. But in all honesty, I think a mid 15 was possible, which in that session would have been really, really competitive. So it's really annoying the way it went, because obviously that's a really good opportunity for you to market yourself as a quick driver, and ultimately it didn't go my way. So you know when you feel how much you've got left in the tank, and yeah, 2:16.8 is what it is. So overall then, our car, once the end of the 4 sessions happened, it wasn't a great qualifying for our car. We started 63rd overall, and there were 67 cars, and we were 19th out of 20 in class, so it really wasn't a strong quali, but we were quite inexperienced lineup compared to everyone else, so I guess that was to be expected. So we were right at the back, so the approach at that point has to change. We're not going out there to win from the off. It's a race of attrition, survive, stay out of trouble, and hopefully we'll get a result from that. So after qualifying then, the night practice, so the first opportunity for everyone to get some night laps under their belt, because it's hugely different at night than it is in the day. And I was the first out in night practice. It was amazing. I love driving at night, and I obviously did it a couple of years ago as well, but I did record it on the old driver's eye camera, and it's obviously my latest YouTube video as well. So if you haven't seen that, go in the card above, check it out. Unbelievable experience to drive a GT3 car around that track at night. You can't see a thing. Like, the camera picks up more than I do. Like sector 2 especially, because it's not floodlit or anything, it's just like your eyes are on stalks trying to pick out the next apex. So I really wish more of you got to experience it, but it's unbelievable. It is so cool, and obviously good practice for the race, because a lot of the race is at night. So yeah, on to Friday then. So Friday was more of a chill day. There was a warm-up session. I didn't do any laps. We gave it to a couple of the other guys in the car, my teammates, and they got some running. So Friday was a nice day just to unwind, reset. Thursday was obviously a very hectic day, and yeah, obviously on to Saturday morning, the morning of the race. And you'd think, I'd done some wet running at the test, some night running, some new tyre runs, some old tyre runs, heavy fuel, low fuel, different setups. So I'd actually done quite a few laps up until this point when you take into account the prologue and the race week. So you'd think he's pretty well prepped for the race. Like, there's not really much that's going to catch him out. So let me just say before we get into this, right, if you're about to click off, all the mental shit is about to happen now, so I urge you to watch till the end. It honestly was a mental race, so bear with me, we'll get into it. So let's think what happened. The plan for the race was for Mark and Chris to start the first few hours and deal with all the chaos of, naturally the start of the race, all the cars are bunched up together, and there was going to be loads of safety cars and stuff, so we were going to use Mark and Chris at that particular point, and then me and Nikolai were going to do the night, because we were a bit stronger in the night conditions, and then we'll sort of see that through until the morning. And it's always, you have a plan, but in a 24-hour race it's always changing because so many things happen, and the plan soon goes out the window, to be honest. So things were going very smoothly in the first few hours. We weren't particularly competitive. Like, we were still at the back. We didn't go from 63rd to like 20th. We were still at the back, but we were still in the fight, and still, the car was in one piece. So things were going to plan up until a moment a few hours in where there was an incident between our driver and some of the pro cars and silver cars. Under a full course yellow, there was a bit of miscommunication, and the cars ended up colliding, as you can see, and that gave us severe damage. The car had to be taken back to the pits. 17 laps it took to fix that damage, so over an hour. Yeah, it was really bad. I mean, I remember the car coming back, and there was like angle grinders on it, and it wasn't looking good. I came into the garage and it was all kicking off, and I was just like, right, well, I was even wondering if we were going to get back out So fortunately, the team, all the other drivers in the car were like determined to get it fixed, get it safe obviously, and get it back out there to try and claw back a result. You know, it's a long race, a lot can happen to a lot of people. So we were like determined, we want to finish, and if we finish well from this moment onwards, we might get a decent result. So yeah, my first stint was around 10 p.m. So I got in the car, and I was in the car for about an hour. It was a full stint, and pretty much the majority of the stint, every lap actually, was behind full course yellow or under a full course yellow scenario where you're going at 80 kilometers an hour, or behind safety car. So should be physically very easy, right? So I came in at the end of the hour, driver swap, next driver was in, I got out. I felt horrendous for the second half of the stint, and I don't know if you guys remember watching me 2 years ago. I had the same thing where behind the safety car I got severely ill, and I had it 4 years ago in British GT at Alton Park, same sort of thing. Behind the safety car, just felt really queasy, and it like makes you want to pass out behind the wheel. It's horrible. I always blamed other factors. I always blamed, you know, maybe I hadn't eaten enough, or maybe my helmet was too small. But, you know, there was nothing wrong this time. Everything was fine. There was no reason for me to feel like that. So I came out obviously feeling really ill, but really annoyed as to why I felt like that. Because, you know, what good is a racing driver if he gets behind the wheel and every time a safety car comes out he feels sick? He's no use to anyone. So very confusing, but fortunately we found the issue because someone recommended it, and it was motion sickness. It does make sense because it would only happen under weaving and braking, and that's when it would come on. So I got given some motion sickness tablets, had them, had a couple of hours to let it wear off, and then every single time I went back in the car, that never happened again. So I've been cured, and I'm over the moon to figure out what that was, because it was worrying me. I was just like, oh, I can't really be a racing driver if I keep getting sick. So to figure out what that was, and hopefully it will never happen again, that was probably one of the main things I got from the weekend, because it's the worst feeling ever. You know, there were points at the end of that stint where I was actually losing the car. I was losing full consciousness. I was like passing out. If we went back to racing speed with me in that state, it would have ended, I think, pretty badly. So fortunately the safety car stayed out until I came in. So yeah, once I got back in the car after a couple of hours of rest, it was undoubtedly the double stint I had, and a double stint is 2 1-hour stints, so you're in the car for 2 hours. It was undoubtedly the scariest experience I've had behind the wheel of a race car, simply because of the weather. It was absolutely torrential. So the torrential rain, the fog, the lightning, the bunched up pack from all the full course yellows and safety cars, and there wasn't one red flag during this entire race, which is, I can't even believe that, to be honest. I mean, there were so many huge crashes. It's a bit of a never-ending cycle, because you wait for a car to crash, then you have full course yellow, safety car, and then all the cars are bunched up, you know, going hammer and tong in a pack, and you wait for the next accident, then you do it again and again and again. So that's why there were so many shunts. And yeah, so with this torrential weather, and when we got the green flag and started racing again, you literally could not see 10 metres in front of you. I was driving down the Kemmel Straight and I could not see more than 10 metres. There was just water everywhere. Couldn't see rain lights, couldn't see the cars in front of me. So if there was a car stationary, that's what I had in my head. I was like, if there's a car stationary on this straight, say if they broke down, I'm not going to see it, and I'm going 250 kilometers an hour. So I'd never experienced anything like that before, to be honest. It was, at times it worked nice, it was like pretty terrifying, but you know, that is their experiences you probably learn a lot from at the same time. So I'm not going to say that I wish it didn't happen. It was something I'll never forget, that is for sure, and I'm sure it will happen again. If I continue racing, it will definitely happen again. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. It was just mental. I did have a half spin during this stint where it was at Le Combe at the end of the Kemmel Straight. It just came off the curb and the rear went, and it was going in at an awkward angle into the gravel. So I was like, no, because obviously if you get beached, it's not good. You lose a lot of time. If not, you just retire. And I managed to catch it at the last minute, kept it going, and we were all good. So lost a few seconds there, but overall not really damaging to our race. When I did join the track, exiting the pit lane for this stint, I did have a bit of a moment with the gearbox. I think it hit a false neutral where I was going from second to third gear and it just wouldn't go in. So it did cost me like 3 or 4 seconds trying to re-engage the gear, and it was a bit of a weird start to the stint, but ultimately it didn't really matter. Overall, the pace in these conditions was really good from what I was told. It's very hard to judge because there's a lot going on in those stints, you know, lots of people overtaking traffic. But compared to the cars on track at that time, apparently I was competitive from what I was told, so that's good. I'll release a raw, uncut version of this stint where it'll be a two-hour video, start to finish, what happened in this stint, because I think you guys deserve to see how crazy that was. I'm not just saying it. Like, there were other pro drivers and stuff getting out of the car, and they were saying like, yeah, that was pretty terrifying. So if they thought that, me being sat in this room for 2 years, sim racing, doing no real racing, going into that, yeah. And once I'd had a couple of hours rest, I got back in the car in the early morning when the lights started coming back, and it was still wet, not torrential, but it was still wet. And I think without a doubt this is probably my most competitive stint from a pace point of view. For a large chunk of the stint, I was apparently the third quickest car on the track. When you think how many cars are on the track and how many quick drivers there are in this series, that's pretty mega. I mean, the car felt really good in these conditions. A little bit understeery, but that's probably not a bad thing. And like, I was catching pro cars, and on one particular instance, I caught a pro Porsche car and was stuck behind him for a while, which is, it's mad to say, you're stuck behind a pro car. And I got a bit greedy into turn one, and I really wanted to close the gap under braking so I could get him on the exit, but misjudged it, and I was going to hit him, but I did take evasive action, just avoided him, resulted in a spin, and then I had to rejoin. So I lost about 15-20 seconds there, which wasn't ideal. Bit of a lapse of concentration from me. And that was the other thing as well. Driving on 1 hour's sleep was a new experience for me as well. Driving a proper race car, I mean I've drove on the sim with minimal sleep and stuff, but it just took some getting used to, and it was pretty tough at times. But you know, no excuse, just the fact, something I'd have to get used to, or I naturally will get used to because I've done it now. So after the spin, I rejoined the track, and I rejoined just in front of overall P1 and P2, and they were fighting at the time. It was a Porsche and a Lamborghini, pro drivers. And just to sort of highlight the pace I had in this stint, I mean, the thing is as well, it was on the official stream for like 15-20 minutes straight, and I basically lost no time. I lost like 2 or 3 seconds to the Porsche, and I think I was quicker than the Lambo. Like, the pace was really, really good in that stint. I didn't realise it at the time. I didn't know those were the two leaders, but you watch it back and you think, wow, that was actually not too bad. A little bit later, I came out the car and went straight back in after an hour, and I experienced something I'd not experienced before, and that was slicks on a drying, damp track where there was one dry line. And obviously, you know, you've seen Formula One, and if you go offline, you basically lose all grip instantaneously and you're in the barrier. So that was sketchy. Something, as I say, I'd not experienced before, and it's very hard to mimic that on the sim. So I was very nervous with that, you know, just really trying to thread the needle and not get a wheel offline. Massive respect to the pro guys in this scenario, obviously with the experience they have, but you know, just even if there's one dry line and it's damp around it, they're just, you know, straight up to Eau Rouge, flat every lap. Commitment, you're really committed, and that's when I was like, wow, that's impressive. Something no doubt I could do with experience, but you know, the last thing I want to do is do that or attempt to do that and write the thing off in the wall. So there was one sketchy moment at Eau Rouge, but yeah, overall kept it on the black stuff, back into the pits, and with around 4 hours to go, I went out for my first double stint in the dry. So it was quite a nice environment to sort of see where my pace was at. You know, it's not as sketchy in the dry. The car was, I'd say, a bit battle scarred by that point. You know, the rear bumper was missing. I'm a bit unsure as to how much damage there was. The car did feel more nervous in that particular stint than it had in all the practice sessions in the qualifying. So I think there was a little bit of damage. I don't know how much pace it was resulting, or how much pace loss there was as a result of that, but it did feel super nervous, especially in Eau Rouge and corners like that. So I was lifting probably where I didn't need to. I was probably a bit conservative. I was lifting most laps in Eau Rouge where it should be flat every lap. So there was a bit of pace loss in corners like that. And yeah, there was loads of mistakes as well. I came out the car at the end of the double stint and I thought, it was alright. Didn't feel like the best stint ever, but it felt alright. I also encountered some traffic which highlighted how badly the McLaren suffers with dirty air and aero wash. So it was at Pouhon, and I sort of turned in, and it wasn't just understeer, it was understeer, then oversteer, then understeer, and clearly it highlighted how much downforce the McLaren gets from the front splitter, because the closer you got, the worse it was. I'd never really experienced that before. I mean, in the old McLaren, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. That was quite something, and it was annoying when you came up to a car that was just a bit slower than you, but not that much slower. It was really hard to get past. So yeah, on your screen you can see the lap time average from the final 8 hours of the race and the drivers who drove in those final 8 hours. And you can see my dry stint there. It takes like a large proportion of those laps from that double stint I did. And you can see it's pretty competitive actually. Some of the names I'm up there with, it was there's some really quick guys in there, some pro drivers, and you can see with the colour symbol next to the names, there's silver drivers, gold drivers, platinum drivers. I couldn't believe how competitive it was, given, as I've just said to you guys, how suboptimal it felt. So encouraging. Given I've got more to find in, being more adaptable and say not lifting an Eau Rouge every lap just because it feels a bit nervous. So I was very upbeat when I saw that, because I did not expect it to be that competitive. So my best race lap from the entire race was a 2:17.59, which was set in this dry double stint with around 4 hours to go. So I think we can quickly watch that now, just to give you guys a sense of, when I'm in the groove, when the car's sort of mid-stint, the fuel's burning off, what a lap looks like. Anyways, Nikolai, with 2 hours to go, jumped in as I got out, and he did another double dry stint like I'd just done. And it's fair to say, given the characteristics of the car and how it felt, he did a really quick stint. He was super consistent and set our team's fastest lap with a 2:17.4, so just a couple of attempts quicker than me. And fair play, that was a rapid stint. I thought everyone was saying I did a really quick one, but he did a really, really quick one. And then with 15 minutes to go, Nikolai got to the end of his max driver stint time, and that was around 8 hours. So there was like 20 minutes left. So I was raring to go. I was like, I got told, do you want to finish the race? And I was like, absolutely, it's a big honour. So I jumped in the car with 20 minutes to go, just to sort of bring it home. We were like 3 laps off the next car. We were 2 laps ahead of the car behind us. Nothing to fight for. I mean, I was expecting a very easy, quite a nice stint till the end. No drama. And just, let me give you a bit of context. The rule in GT World Challenge is when they put some fuel in the car, they have to brim it to the absolute max. They can't just put 10 litres in. They got to fill it. And we didn't change tyres. So I went out there with used tyres, full fuel. And up until that point, Blanchimont had been flat in the dry every single lap. Easy. Like with margin to spare. So went out there and on the out lap tried to do it flat, went wide, got a track limit, and I thought with me, having 1 hour's sleep or whatever, I thought, it's just me, I'm being an idiot, just turn the wheel more. So approached it on the next lap and had a huge moment.
half a second on the one lap, but 27 thousandths on another lap. Oh, up at Blanchimont, that's a quick run through the gravel and the grass, and the car's really, there's absolutely now chock-a-block with grass.
That was James Baldwin, I think.
So a real close moment there, as you saw. Can't believe with 8 minutes to go, I almost wrote the thing off. That would have been, I laugh, but that would have been honestly super embarrassing and maybe career-ending. Do you know what I mean? You get an opportunity like that and you just stick it in the wall. Fortunately, I saved it, and I'm going to blame it on my cat-like reflexes more than luck. But we'll, I'll see what you guys think about that. And understandably, after that, backed off fully. Eau Rouge, Stavelot 2, Blanchimont, lifting every lap, just get it to the end. And eventually, I'm proud to say, very proud to say, we finished the 24 Hours of Spa in 2024, the biggest GT race in the world. We finished it, despite the fact there was torrential conditions and carnage, and half the field didn't finish. We finished, and we did finish P38 overall and P11 in class. So we got some sort of result out of it. I mean, it wasn't the result we were looking for, but it was a result. And, to finish first you must finish. And, I know if we didn't have the incident at the start, we would have been right up there come the end. I mean, when me and Nikolai got in the car and we took over from basically, I think, like 7 a.m. onwards, we were super competitive. I don't even think we lost a lap. We might have lost one lap. Yeah, it was really, really good. So the potential was there, and it was an honour to just even be in that race, the 100th edition of the 24 Hours of Spa. So overall, if I was to sum it all up, I think if we start with my individual performance, because I was certainly in control of that, I was very happy with it, to be honest. It was much better than 2 years ago when I did the Spa 24 Hour for the first time. In the end, I did about 8.5 hours of driving, so it's a fair old chunk, and I learned so much in that time about, the motion sickness, the different conditions, driving in the wet on dry tyres, driving in the dry on wet tyres. There's just so much happened, and it's all logged up here. So, should I be doing more racing, that will come very much in handy. Experience is everything, as we know. Certainly the most competitive I've felt behind the wheel of a race car. I think, obviously British GT went well, but you could say the level was a lot lower than this, and it was. 2 years ago, the level was what it was now, but I was nowhere near as good and as quick and as consistent. Yeah, this time round, as I say, in the morning stint, being the third quickest car on track, staying with the overall leaders, you saw the screenshot with the lap times. I was up there with some very quick drivers. It just really surprising. In all honesty, it was very surprising. Having had 2 years out of the car, I didn't expect to see that progression. And I think that the way I would sum it up would be, last time at Spa, I was catching bronzes and staying with silvers. But this time round, I was catching silvers and staying with pros for the most part. So I definitely saw a big jump, which, you may be thinking, how can you get better? If you've not done any racing, how can you get better? And I think, honestly, what it is since joining the Mercedes esports team and sim racing and taking it more seriously and looking into data more and having a more analytical approach, and I've learned a lot about myself as a driver on the sim rig. It's crazy to see that direct translation in reality from my own eyes. I've improved on the sim, and I didn't expect it, but just behind the wheel of the real car, everything just made so much more sense. I knew what to do in certain scenarios. I knew what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. I had more going on up here to adapt to different situations, and really surprising. And yeah, of course, a big thank you to my teammates, Nikolai, Chris and Mark, who went on that journey with me, put it all on the line like I did, and undoubtedly all of them at points were terrified, but they are equally as responsible for getting the car to the finish. Yeah, fair play to those guys. It was really great to share that experience with them, and it was a really good week. We all got on really well and helped each other, and it was really good. And obviously the biggest thank you goes to Garage 59 for letting me drive that McLaren in the first place, for inviting me back. Obviously I did the race with them 2 years ago, and it got the call up a couple of months ago, so a big thank you to them. Obviously it wouldn't have been possible without them, so massively appreciate that from those guys. And it was great to meet so many of you out there as well, some subscribers, some followers, some people that donated to the GoFundMe that I did last year. That was ultimately the reason I ended up being able to race, was from the GoFundMe. So it was great to meet you guys and girls out there, and it was also good to see so much support in the official stream and stuff as well. Yeah, just some real pinch me moments throughout the entirety of the last couple of months. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, and But yeah, overall, happy to say we finished the 24 hours of Spa. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Sub to the channel. There'll be more Spa 24 content on the way. Qualifying analysis, the scariest race stint I did at night, you know, all of that's to come. So make sure you don't miss that. So thank you for watching. Have a good day. Take care and see you soon.